The criminal justice system in Milwaukee County took on a new initiative in the year 2000. The district attorney's office launched the Community Conferencing Program based on the principles of restorative justice. It's defined as a way to engage the victim and the offender as active participants in the justice system, to assess the harm done, determine what can be done to repair the harm, while holding the offender accountable for his or her actions. Meetings like this one are being held throughout the community to educate the public about restorative justice principles.
So the conferencing program, which is really the main focus of the restorative justice programming in the DA's office, has a lot of stories behind it. But it's part of this thing called restorative justice, which is a very broad concept. And one thing that I really want you to leave here with, if nothing else, is that when you hear the phrase restorative justice, it's not any one particular program. The conferencing program is one type of restorative justice programming, but it's not the only type of restorative justice. Restorative justice broadly is really a way of thinking.
A different way of thinking about and responding to crimes and the criminal justice system. Participants were asked to consider this situation. You come upon a woman lying on the ground, the contents of her purse scattered on the sidewalk, two small children who are crying, and a half block away, someone is running away. How do you respond?
A very simple scene, simple but certainly very traumatic. And let's assume it is a crime. It's not clear that that's a crime. It could have been a slip and fall, it could have been a jogger, but let's indeed assume it's a crime. Even with you all thinking that it could be, it sounds like a crime, your first inclination, your heart is speaking to you, was saying, we got to deal with the people who are traumatized here. And that's the first response. So one of the guiding principles, really the guiding principle of restorative justice as a concept is to repair the harm and to take care of victims' needs. Take care of what happens to victims. We're basically defining crime or any harm as an offense against human relationships. And lawyers in the criminal justice system kind of does this reverse thing of, we know how to decide which statute this particular offense applies, which statute applies to the particular offense. We even go further and look at jury instructions and how do we convince the jury that it really is an armed robbery, even though it wasn't an actual gun being shown. And there are all these little tricks of the trade, basically, that we lawyers are trained to deal with, and that's what goes on in court. So a lot of needs of victims and of people get left behind. So restorative justice comes along and says, no, there's something else that has to happen. And that something else is dealing with the needs of victims while holding offenders accountable.
Since May of 2000, the Milwaukee County District Attorney's Office has held more than 200 community conferences, groups about this size, with the victim, offender, facilitator, and a community representative talking about what happened and its impact.
There's a ripple effect. How do we contend with that? And teaching offenders, letting them hear firsthand from victims of crime and from community members what the impact of a particular offense had on them, we believe does something. We believe that it gets at the humanity that's inside. I love asking the question, what was it like telling your grandma that you burglarized this guy's home? And you see people kind of, oh man, that's a really hard question to answer, because we're making them think. And then we come up with an agreement. Then we work out an agreement as to what has to happen to repair the harm. That's the focal point of that part of the conversation. What has to happen to repair the harm? How do we move forward from this? Again, in that conversation, there's a real focus on the needs of the victim, and there's a focus on the needs of the offender in terms of what's going to help that person move forward to be an active, participating member of society. It doesn't mean, and this is the key thing for doing this work within the justice system, it doesn't mean that the offender is getting off light or getting off the hook, because first, in terms of our cases, some of the cases end up with a lighter sentence. Some of them do end up in a dismissal, but there's always accountability. The offender is being held accountable.
A very important part of the community conferencing program are its facilitators, those community volunteers who oversee the group discussions. The District Attorney's Office sponsored this facilitators training program in January. Among the participants, Sister Mary Jo Call, also a victim of crime, who says she'll never forget the night of April 8, 2005, when her car was hijacked.
As I reached around to unlatch the door, the two of them were right there. Car keys and money, or you're dead.
Sister Call had many stressful days and sleepless nights after that attack. She didn't want retribution, but felt her attackers had to make restitution. Community conferencing was the answer, and she met face-to-face with one of the carjackers.
I think the big benefit that I felt was that I was able to be honest to him about what he had done to me. And I just wanted to ask the question, do you really realize what you did the night, and why did you do it? I guess I had to ask the question, why did you do it? Was he watching me? Did he have me targeted?
In the restorative justice process, the offender must admit guilt, and she says he also apologized to her. She meets twice a month with the 23-year-old man at the House of Correction.
Sometimes I think when they're in that crime, they don't see the depth of what they do to innocent people. And I could really say that in the conferencing. I could really say, how he had really offended me.
The contract between Sister Call and her attacker includes drug and alcohol rehabilitation, an 8-step program to take a pledge of nonviolence, attaining a high school equivalency diploma, and job training. Because of that contract, the offender was sentenced to 1 year in jail and 4 years of probation. If he doesn't meet the terms, he could be sent to prison for 10 years.
While they're in there serving that time, they can just be getting more and more angry. And then the cycle of violence just continues. Whereas if somebody gets to the core of who they are as a human being and how they need to act as a responsible person, they'll make life changes. That's not going to only benefit them, but all of society.
While continuing to work with her attacker, Sister Mary Jo Call is now learning to become a facilitator to help other victims and offenders.
There's some real energy here because I've already sensed it. Well, I've sensed it from David, and I've sensed it from Aaron, and just my contact with them since May, when I started working on this, through the program that I am with my offender. And now with this whole group of people, there's some real energy there. There's some real energy of people who are committed to restoring relationships. And that's what this is. There's a broken relationship there. And there's a broken relationship between, the offender and the victim and the whole community.
This vacant land along the Milwaukee River just south of Cherry Street has been in the news a lot lately. It's the site where Manpower Incorporated will build its new corporate headquarters. And it's the latest project to be designated as a TIF, or Tax Incremental Financing District. Construction begins this spring, with completion in the summer of 2007. City assistance in the form of a Tax Incremental Financing District is $25 million, with the money to be repaid by the district. Supporters say the investment will result in a tremendous economic impact.
There are more than a dozen cities who are vying for manpower to come to their respective communities. However, only one city I say, Milwaukee, emerged with the capacity to invest in, embrace, and ultimately welcome the positive impact this global corporation will have on this community. I can think of no other city where the elected leadership would not welcome the opportunity to have an international headquarters in their downtown. The upside is virtually limitless.
The Common Council agreed the Manpower TIF would be an economic benefit for the city and neighborhood, approving the assistance on February 7th. Alderman added $250,000 for a job training program to provide another benefit for city residents.
The funding would be used for actually putting people to work. We have an RPP requirement, a residence preference program requirement in all contracts. Here we have an opportunity to really do something creative, and that's when you can sit down with the Department of Administration, who houses the Emerging Business Enterprise Division, in which the city of Milwaukee has been doing some very innovative things with, and try to increase capacity in human capital. So we have a component where we're trying to build capacity in businesses. Here we're trying to make sure that we put people to work so that they can provide sustainable life, not only for them, but for their family and for their children. And I think the $250,000 based upon a $25 billion tax incremental district is money well invested.
You probably recognize this tax incremental financing district. It's Schlitz Park. A $4.5 million TIF helped build this complex. 3,000 people now work here. The loan was repaid in 10 years, and Schlitz Park paid $1.9 million in property taxes in 2005. The neighborhood surrounding West North Avenue between Martin Luther King Jr. Drive and North 7th Streets is the site of another of the newest TIF districts. $3.6 million to support development and new business in the area. It's called Bronzeville, and the object is to create an African-American cultural and entertainment district. The newest establishment in Bronzeville is Garfield's 502, a music club and restaurant at 5th and Garfield. Grand opening ceremonies in February included a ribbon-cutting ceremony.
Well, I am delighted to be here. This is obviously a great opening, and it's a great celebration for our community. And I want to thank, in particular, Lamar Franklin and Jewel Curry for their perseverance and their commitment and really working with the city. We wanted to make sure that there were no barriers to opening this establishment. But the city is committed to Bronzeville. What we have done is we have created a unique TIF for this area, a $3.6 million TIF, because we want to have more economic development in Bronzeville. But we're really, really, really happy to be part of this. The city is happy to have been involved in this, and I just love it. This is great, obviously, for the people who are running the business here, but it's going to be great for the community, and we're just pleased to be part of it.
This location holds a lot of history for the community, as the former Booby's Place, a cultural institution and legendary blues bar.
Just wanted to give a special shout out to the ancestors who really paved the way. Give it to Booby, and his spirit prayerfully lives on through this building, vicariously through the two owners here, Mr. Franklin and Mr. Curry. They've done a really tremendous job of being patient, because in our community we really have taken a long time to get to this point of where Bronzeville should be. Bronzeville, you could say coulda, woulda, shoulda, but Bronzeville is alive and well through this project, as people have been actually asking, when are you going to do something in Bronzeville? We heard about the $3.6 million or whatnot, but when are you going to do something active that can inspire the community, and not just know that this wonderful development will be the catalyst that really brings forth more development? I look forward to us working really productively in the future, and I thank you all, and have a good day and good year, and may this be the catalyst that we have and that we need in the community to move this tax incremental district financing further.
America's Black Holocaust Museum is one of the major anchors for Bronzeville, and the city hopes it can help draw similar cultural attractions to the district in addition to the entertainment venues. In the past 30 years, the city of Milwaukee has created 62 tax incremental financing districts, large and small, redevelopment projects which have created a tax base of $1.8 billion. Here are just a few of the others.